I need you to try something. Picture the last time you locked a bathroom door and just stood there. Not using it. Just standing. 3 minutes of nothing, just because you could. Now picture explaining that urge to someone who lived 50,000 years ago. They wouldn't get it. Not because they were less evolved than you. Because for 95% of human history, that door didn't exist. That room didn't exist. That moment didn't exist. So where did it go? Where do you put the need to be alone when there is physically nowhere to be alone? Stick around, because the answer involves Roman toilets, Babylonian executions, and a word that literally turned into the word idiot. I'm not kidding. Here's the math nobody thinks about. For roughly 190,000 years, humans lived in bands of 20 to 50 people. Same fire. Same floor. Same air, every single day, from birth to death. No bedroom. No, I'm heading home now. No home to head to. Archaeologists dig up these ancient camps expecting to find some hint of a private corner, a partition, a separated sleeping nook, something. They almost never find it. One space. Everyone. All the time. So here's the question that should mess with you a little. Did they even want privacy? Or did we invent that need later, like debt, or group chats, or main character syndrome? Some anthropologists think privacy isn't built into us at all. They think it's a byproduct, something that only shows up once you have property to protect, status to manage, secrets worth keeping. And there's real evidence. The Piraha people of the Amazon, studied extensively by linguists and anthropologists, sleep in tight communal groups and show very little embarrassment around bodily functions, with a relaxed attitude toward nudity and personal life. No concept of, this should be hidden. Before you romanticize that, stop. The flip side is brutal. Everyone has an opinion on everything you do, all the time, forever. Bad mood? No corner of earth to have it in private. That's not freedom. That's a pressure cooker with no valve. Except there was a valve. We just don't recognize it as privacy, because it wasn't made of walls. This is the part that should blow your mind a little. The first privacy technology humans ever invented wasn't a room. It was an agreement. Anthropologists call it civil inattention, a silent contract to not look, not comment, to act like you didn't notice, even though you absolutely did. You already do this constantly. Strangers in an elevator staring at the floor numbers like they're fascinating. A couple arguing quietly 2 tables over and everyone suddenly very interested in their menu. Someone crying on the train, and the entire carriage performs a masterclass in minding its own business. That instinct is ancient. In a 30-person survival group, gossip and prying weren't just rude, they were dangerous. They could fracture the group that kept you alive. So privacy lived in other people's restraint, not in architecture. Humans had privacy before they had walls. They just kept it in each other's eyes. Around 10,000 years ago, everything breaks. Agriculture happens. Humans stop wandering and start staying. And staying means something new. Stuff. Grain stores. Livestock. Land. The second you have something worth protecting, you need a way to control who gets near it. That's privacy's real engine, not modesty, not shame. Control. Walk through Catalhoyuk, a 9,000-year-old settlement in Turkey, and you can watch this happen in real time. Houses crammed wall to wall, no streets, people climbing in through holes in the roof, and yet inside, for the first time, distinct zones start appearing. Raised sleeping platforms. Dedicated cooking areas. Storage space. The house stops being shelter from rain and starts being a container for a life. But here's the twist almost nobody mentions. Kids got none of it. Children slept in the same room as everyone. Watched the arguments, the grief, the births, the deaths, completely unfiltered, and nobody thought that was strange, because space was too scarce to spare for age-appropriate anything. So kids did something clever. They stopped looking for private space and found private time instead. The walk to fetch water. The hours alone tending animals. A specific tree. A specific rock by the river. A tiny invisible empire that belonged to nobody but them. That instinct never died, by the way. Watch any kid today build a fort out of a blanket and 2 chairs. Same move. Different millennium. Okay, we have to talk about toilets, because you cannot understand ancient privacy without understanding that bodily functions were, for most of human history, a group activity. The Romans, the same civilization that gave us aqueducts and concrete that's still standing, had public latrines called foraca. Long stone benches. Multiple holes. No partitions. You sat next to strangers and, based on the graffiti and writing that survives, you talked. Business. Gossip. Catching up. While doing exactly what you'd expect. They weren't embarrassed. They were proud of the plumbing. And shocking absolutely no one, the wealthy found a workaround. Private chamber pots. Servants to handle it. Separate chambers in big villas. Money buying privacy is not a new story. It's one of the oldest stories there is. Ordinary Egyptians lived in 1 or 2 room mud brick homes. Privacy was behavioral again, same as everywhere else, because there just wasn't square footage for anything fancier. But the elite? By 3000 BCE, Egyptian nobles had multi-room villas with reception halls for guests and completely separate private family quarters, areas visitors never saw. A literal backstage to the performance of hosting. That's the exact architecture of every dinner party you've ever hosted. Guests in the living room. Nobody's going in your bedroom. 4,000 years later, same blueprint. And here's the detail that genuinely gives me chills. The Egyptians cared so much about privacy, they extended it into death. They called the tomb Prajet, House of Eternity. Sealed. Closed. Permanently private. They tried to build privacy into the afterlife itself. Jump to Mesopotamia. Uruk alone may have held up to 50,000 people by 3000 BCE, and when that many strangers are packed together, mind your own business stops being a vibe and starts needing to be a law. Enter the Code of Hammurabi, around 1754 BCE, laws about property boundaries, about unlawful entry into someone's home. Breaking into a house was a real crime nearly 4,000 years ago. The punishment? Execution, on the spot, at the point of entry. Nobody was testing that boundary in ancient Babylon. Greece gives us the most contradictory chapter in this whole story. Public life, the agora, was everything. Visibility was status. Being seen debating, trading, philosophizing in public was what made you a full citizen. But the home, the oikos, was fiercely private, and who got access to that privacy depended entirely on who you were. Citizen men got both worlds, public glory and private retreat. Women, especially in Athens, were largely confined to the domestic sphere, privacy that wasn't chosen, but enforced. And there's a word for the private sphere in Greek, idion. Recognize it? It's where we get the word idiot. Because to the Greeks, someone who only existed privately, who never showed up in public life, wasn't enviable, they were incomplete. Too much privacy wasn't peace. It was a kind of social erasure. Meanwhile in Zhou dynasty China, Confucian philosophy was working out something genuinely ahead of its time. That public performance is exhausting, and somewhere behind it has to live an unperformed self. The concept of li, ritual propriety, dictated exactly how to act in every public role. But Confucian thought drew a hard line around the home. Relationships between husband and wife, parent and child, were held to a different, more authentic standard, deliberately shielded from public formality. Translation: you can't be fully real in public. Performance and authenticity sit in tension. That's not a modern therapy speak idea. That's 2,500-year-old Chinese philosophy. By the height of Rome, elite homes, the domus, were engineered around this exact boundary. Front rooms, semi-public, clients showed up at dawn, business got done, your public face was on display. Further back, the private dining room, the bedroom, the private garden. Family only. The unperformed version of you. Roman law even said it outright. Every man's home is his safest refuge. That's over 1,000 years before, an Englishman's home is his castle. And Romans complained about the cost of public life exactly like we do. The poet Martial wrote about hating the dawn ritual of greeting clients when he'd rather be asleep. 2,000 years later, that's just Monday. But the deepest layer of this whole story isn't architecture. It's the inner life. Cicero wrote letters to his friend Atticus explicitly meant for no one else's eyes, and in them, the most powerful orator in Rome reads like a completely different person. Anxious. Grieving. Self-doubting. Public Cicero and private Cicero were almost two separate men. That gap, the public face and the private self, isn't dysfunction. Ancient humans treated it as sophistication. The cost of living in a society at all. So here's what this all adds up to. Privacy was never one thing. Hunter-gatherers had behavioral privacy, the agreement not to look. Farmers built spatial privacy, walls, zones, rooms. Empires built legal privacy, codes, punishments, rights. And underneath every single one of those, in every era, humans guarded a psychological privacy that no wall or law ever fully reached. But here's the uncomfortable part. Privacy has never been equally handed out. It's always been a privilege, not a right. The powerful had more of it. The wealthy built walls around it. Women were denied it while men assumed it. In Rome, enslaved people slept in hallways and workrooms, visible, available, with no refuge at all, while the person who enslaved them closed a door every single night without a second thought. So next time you put in headphones, or lock a door, or just sit somewhere alone for 5 minutes doing nothing, you're not doing something trivial. You're doing something humans have been fighting, building, and legislating for since the very first person sat at the edge of a fire, looked at the 29 other people they were stuck with, and thought, I just need a minute. That need is not new. It's not Western. It's not modern. It's just human.